Those of this station or its sponsors.
And you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. And you may find yourself in another part of the world. And you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile. And you may find yourself in a beautiful house with a beautiful wife. And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Letting the days go by. Let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by.
And if you are a regular listener of the Watchdog Networks, you'll know that that music indicates that Bill DeFabio is not here in the variety show, but it is Butch Maxwell sitting in for Bill DeFabio. I'm happy to be here on Wednesday, November 9th, kind of a cold afternoon, but it's bright and sunny and really kind of beautiful. I've got a number of things going on today, but my very first half hour, I'm going to be speaking with West Liberty University President Franklin Evans, and he's here along with Wheeling YWCA Cultural Diversity and Community Outreach Director Ron Scott. And very, very happy to have you guys here. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Dr. Evans, you are relatively recently have been appointed as the president of West Liberty. And how long have you been on board here?
This is my 11th month. I came January 1.
Okay, yeah. So
Still my first year.
it's been almost a year. Yeah,
Almost,
good.
yes.
And so right from the starting gate, we had a little bit of a controversy, and so I think that I'd like to kind of deal with that now. Is my understanding of it was that in several speeches, one of which I saw on the plaza, by the way, was a great speech. But in several of these speeches, you had failed to cite sources. Is that a fair description of what
The
happened?
description is fair that I failed to identify the originator or whatever quote I was saying, who that person was.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an academic. Well, sometimes some people think it's a really serious issue, and I mean, it probably is. I mean, I've had to. I teach in higher education, as you know, and I've actually had to call out some students for apparent plagiarism, and it's a serious academic offense. It could result in a student getting. I mean, in its most extreme cases, expelled. Although generally, I don't think universities do that on one or two occasions. But the students definitely get called out for it. So there was some legitimate concern that a university president wasn't following that protocol. And the things I teach are speech. And so I'm saying, kids, you've got to cite all your sources. You look smarter, you look better if you cite your sources. So this was probably just an oversight, or
Well, I'll be honest with you, and for me, the level of concern and care in speaking for me has been much different than writing.
Yeah.
So if I was writing a paper or something for publication, an article, certainly I would do my due diligence
Right.
to make sure that I'm citing the sources and attributing to whoever the author is.
Yeah.
In speaking, sometimes you get so caught up in the message
Right.
and what you want to say to someone that, and that's what I did. I was highlighting things that freshmen need to certainly focus on as they start the year off, and failed to say that I was getting this from Mr. Farrington, who had put that together.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's understandable. You get sort of caught up in the moment trying to get this across, and it's a matter of just saying, this comes from this source, and then you always cite the source at the very moment that you give it, because if you could put a works cited at the end of your speech, it's meaningless. So,
And then I'll add that one of the allegations was about a presentation that I had made on insects.
Okay,
And certainly, as I said, when you're talking about facts,
yeah,
there's no real ownership.
true. Yeah,
You describe the process of fertilization, the process of pollination.
Right.
You're going to use the same words. And so however you describe it, someone else is going to describe it the same way because it is factual.
Right.
And the same information. So
Yeah.
although it sounds alike, you're using the same phrases, you're using the same terms.
Sure.
And so people will look at that and say, oh, you didn't cite, this came from this source. The same phrases can come from 100 sources.
Sure, yeah.
Particularly when you're dealing with facts.
Yeah, I get that. Well, what is your academic background? Can you tell us what discipline you came through and all that?
So I have varied degrees. I actually have a degree in journalism.
Oh, okay.
But my first degree was in entomology, the study of insects.
All right, yeah.
And from there, I got a master's degree in science curriculum, middle childhood education. I've got a degree in K-12 administration, but my doctorate is in higher ed leadership.
Okay, yeah, which makes sense for your career path here. And this is your first presidency, right?
No, this is really second and a half.
Second and a
I
half,
was
okay.
President at Voorhees College in South Carolina.
Okay.
And then for about a year and a half, I served as the interim president at South Carolina State University.
All right, very
So
good.
this is really my third position at the helm.
Okay, yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I hope that things smooth out for you and we get to enjoy your leadership for the next few years, at least anyway. I think that, I don't know, Zachary told me when I mentioned off the air that I used to work at West Liberty as an administrator. I was in public relations, and the president for whom I worked often said, the average tenure of a president is about 5 years now. Is that still about true?
You are correct.
Yeah.
It's about 5 years at predominantly white institutions, but at historically black colleges and universities, it's much less. It's about 3.6 years.
Huh. I wonder why that would be.
The turnover, it's big. And it's not like it used to be in higher education where presidents stayed there 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, we had Dr. Elbin in there for
Yes.
forever. I mean, it was 30 years or something. He was president up there. So,
Those days are gone.
Yeah,
Those days are gone.
yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So tell us about well, I guess another thing I should mention, since you're the first black president of West Liberty University too.
Yes, in its 184 years of existence, I am the first person of color.
Well, that's fantastic.
To serve as president.
Yeah, that's great. And this is not a historically greatly diverse area either. So, as I'm sure you've noticed, but everything seems to be, everything's going smoothly as far as that goes anyway.
Well, the thing when I applied and was sought after was the idea of diversity.
Yeah.
That it's time for a change and people are embracing diversity. And oftentimes, that's what people do in theory. In practice, though, change is very difficult for people.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when change comes about, people resist it. I used to say, and I can't tell you where it came from, but that the only person who really likes change is a wet baby. And even that baby is going to cry knowing that he or she needs to be changed.
Yes, that's true. We are all resistant to change. Well, what sort of changes are you hoping to bring West Liberty along with?
One of the big things that I'm hoping to do at West Liberty is to increase its enrollment. Enrollment has gone down over the last few years, and that certainly is an issue and a priority for me to reverse that trend.
Yes.
And I can't say that West Liberty is the exception. Throughout West Virginia, we are experiencing a decline in enrollment, not only in higher education, but our K-12 sector is not producing a large number of graduates. But enrollment is certainly an issue.
Yeah.
The financial stability, making sure that the university has a sound financial base.
Sure.
In light of COVID and all of the challenges that are happening.
Yeah.
We are an enrollment-driven institution. So if we don't have students, that is going to hurt us financially.
Sure.
And so that certainly is another priority.
How are you hoping to affect that change of increased enrollment and increased revenue, or at least shoring up your revenue?
So we certainly are looking at other strategies. The pool here in West Virginia is saturated. As I said, you have fewer number of students graduating and making themselves available.
Right.
So we have to go outside the state. And although we have done some of that in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Maryland, we've got to enlarge and enhance our reach.
Yeah.
Certainly international students and having those individuals to come to West Liberty is another strategy and another plus. Because there are students out there in other countries that would love to come and get an education here at West Liberty University. So we've got to employ those kinds of strategies and then think outside the box. I know that's a phrase that's often used, but finding our niche and looking at even non-traditional students, people who want to go back and finish their education,
Yeah.
persons who may already have an associate's degree and want to come and further their education. All of those are certainly persons and groups that we need to identify and target.
Right.
And as well as those people who just want some improvements in their soft skills,
Yeah,
or a certificate. And so we are offering some certificates where you take a block of courses and you get a certificate in a particular area.
That's fantastic.
So those are certainly some of the methods that we're trying to employ to increase enrollment.
Yeah, fantastic. And I suppose also you're going to be, are you going to expand admissions or just change the orientation or something like that to get recruitment from further afar? I know when I was a student there, we had a lot of students from New Jersey. And I don't know of any, I don't know how many you've got now, but it's not like it used to be. And I think that was because the in-state in West Virginia was cheaper than in-state or out-of-state was cheaper than in-state in New Jersey.
And that's one of those things that we're looking at. We actually have an in-state rate for persons who reside within West Virginia.
Yeah.
And of course, there's an out-of-state fee. But the other good thing is that we have a metro rate. And that metro rate is between in-state and out-of-state. And so it affords those students who may be in Pennsylvania or Ohio the opportunity to come at a reduced rate, not having to pay the out-of-state, the full out-of-state amount.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at that metro rate number to make sure that that's a number that really is congruent with us trying to attract students
Right.
From Ohio or Pennsylvania or even Virginia and Maryland. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. Of course, we do offer scholarships and assistance that will support students coming to West Liberty University, but we're trying to leave no rock unturned when it comes to enrollment and tapping into our available resources.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know there are a number of problems even beyond. I know one of the things we were grappling with in the 90s was deferred maintenance and things like that, where you've just got so much. And of course, in those days too, we were concerned about how we were going to wire the whole campus, not realizing in a few years it'd be Wi-Fi. We didn't have to worry about that anymore.
But deferred maintenance is always an issue.
Yeah.
And although we are a state-supported institution, the amount of funding that the state has given us, that amount has dwindled over the years.
Yeah.
I know people in the past, probably during your era, could probably brag and say, the state was probably supporting the institution some 35, 40%. Now it's much less.
Yeah, about how much?
We're talking at about around 15%.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a disturbing trend,
Yes,
and particularly since we have a problem nationally, and certainly in this state most acutely in workforce training and things like that. Not every job of the future is going to require a college education, but most of them are going to require some sort of training.
Yes,
So how is West Liberty trying to respond to that?
Well, we certainly realize that everybody is not going to desire a four-year degree. Persons can certainly go to a two-year institution and get a skill set that certainly is going to be valuable. But I will tell you that even with that, having a four-year degree, it's still competitive out there.
Oh, yeah.
And so you've got people with master's degrees in some areas who are taking entry-level positions that used to be held by persons with just a high school diploma.
Yeah.
So it's much more competitive.
Yeah.
And so for every job, and a lot of times they will post a job, and sometimes people will say, well, this person is overqualified. Well, if they've chosen to apply for the position, apparently.
They want it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a terrible excuse to not hire
yes.
someone.
So, but we've certainly got to be much more in tune with the workforce.
Yeah.
And making sure that we're providing the training and skills that when our students graduate, they can go and get employment, and that our industry partners think that these are the individuals who are skilled and they welcome our graduates there.
Yeah. What kind of community outreach are you doing with employers and things like that to find out about their needs? I'm sure you're doing a lot of that.
And we are doing a lot of that. Certainly, there's a need for more, and that's one of the priorities for me, community engagement.
Yeah.
On campus, we have a brand new dean of the College of Business, and she has already started developing relationships and networking with people in the community
Yeah.
to make sure that businesses know that we've got accountants that we're producing.
Yeah.
We've got some other financial analysts and other things. And so she has been working along with my VP of External Affairs in trying to make those connections with business and with industry. And it's going good.
Yeah.
We have a Highlands off-campus site.
I do, yes.
And that's one of those things that it's really good, but we've not maximized its use. And so we're working to get a better return on our investment there. And so we're trying to certainly enhance some of the things that we're doing there, and that is certainly going to serve as a facility where we're expecting business partners to come in and work with us. We've got a lot of ideas that we have on schedule to take place with our industry partners.
Great.
Some training that will go on there. We're wanting the high schools to come and even have a testing facility there so that persons can take tests, those standardized tests without having to go anywhere. They can come right there and do that at the Highlands Center.
It's a fantastic facility. I know I've had the privilege of teaching there, and the classrooms are very nice, modern, and
Yes.
clean facility, and it's
Great
great.
location to restaurants and shopping and all.
It truly is.
It really is a win-win, and so
You go right across the street to the movies. It's
we
fantastic.
can do all of that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
If you're just joining us in the middle of this, I like to do remind you, because I know a lot of people just join us midway and say, "Who the heck are we talking to?" This is Butch Maxwell sitting in for Bill DeFabio on his regular variety show, and my guest is the West Liberty University president, W. Franklin Evans, and along with Ron Scott from the YWCA, is being pretty quiet right now.
Right. Yes. I'm sorry. I needed to jump in too because I wanted to make sure that I wanted to be a part of this process that I like to think of as a reintroduction. Because if there's one thing I do know, it is the Valley, because I've been born and raised here. And in my position, when you're out here talking to folks about change and diversity and inclusion and equity and those sort of things, you understand, just like how you guys were saying, that sometimes that change is tough.
It is.
And I know that a lot of folks in the Valley and across the entire country get comfortable with whatever definition gets handed to me first.
Yeah.
And since I knew a lot of folks were getting handed a definition of Dr. Evans that wasn't quite complete,
Right.
I had to make sure that he gets in front of enough platforms and talking to enough ears so that he could realize he's a person that can affect the future of your children.
Yes.
He can affect the future of your sons and daughters, of your brother-in-laws and uncles. Like, he can enhance the Valley, and then his impact can be felt by all these folks around here. So we have to make sure we give them the opportunity to do it.
Yes.
And I think the reintroduction is the best way. I can't have folks walking around with an idea that he didn't necessarily earn already. So
Yes. No, definitely did.
Yeah.
As I said, I saw him speak at the Plaza. Very impressive.
Oh yeah, to Juneteenth? Was that to
It was
Juneteenth?
Juneteenth.
Yeah. That one sold it for me too.
Yeah. so you've got a couple believers in you, Dr.
I
Evans.
appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So what can we look forward to in the future with what's going to happen with West Liberty in the next couple of years?
So I'm looking to move West Liberty to another level. That's certainly it. And so I think I am the change agent to bring that about. New programs, looking at certainly boosting our graduate enrollment. Right now we have like 10 graduate programs, but they are not running at capacity. And so certainly wanting to get the word out, being much more proactive in reaching out to institutions, other higher ed institutions, to get some of the graduates and hopefully a diverse group of individuals who would want to come to West Liberty University, spend a couple of years, get their master's degree, and go on. So that's one of the things. Our graduate enrollment is certainly high on the list.
Yeah.
We are preparing to build a aquatics conservation center on our campus.
Wow,
We've
that's-
gotten approval for that. Yeah, and some people call it the crayfish building.
Okay.
But it's going to be more than crayfish. Yeah. But certainly we would serve as a regional hub to do some research, provide experts to go out in many of the areas, not just in West Virginia, but throughout the surrounding region.
Yeah.
But we're excited about that particular structure coming on campus. The other idea is that I want West Liberty University to have its first doctoral program.
Yes.
And so the College of Education is looking into offering a doctorate.
Well, that makes a lot of sense since West Liberty was first started out as a teacher, a normal
Yes.
school, teachers in
Yes.
college.
Yes.
But they've distinguished themselves in sciences, as you
Yes.
point out right here, and in the business, and in the arts as well, because I lived in fine arts when I was there, so you know.
And those are still great areas.
Yeah,
Still great areas, and so we're just looking to be that all in all for this region, for this area, so that you don't have to leave and go to Morgantown or any place
Right.
else. All of your needs can really be met right here in the Ohio Valley area.
One of the things that I was proudest of when I worked for West Liberty as public relations director was, first of all, that I just got to tell the good news about, and if anything bad happened, then I love the school so much I could just get out and say, okay, we're working with it. We're not gonna hide from this. We're just gonna say, just the fact that it is sort of, it was kind of known as the blue collar school. It was for people who didn't really. I mean, we kind of made fun of some of the other institutions. Bethany was, the Ivy League for kids that weren't smart enough to get an Ivy League. That's not fair. I don't mean to say that, but that was sort of the joke. Wheeling Jesuit University at the time had its own sort of orientation, but West Liberty was kind of the college of the people, and I'm sure that's still the orientation going forward.
It still is the college of the people, of all the people. This summer, for the first time, I heard that there were people here in Wheeling who viewed West Liberty as the high school on the hill.
Yes, I heard that a lot too.
And only because they were saying that students from this area did not go there. And I'm saying, well, I don't think West Liberty should be blamed because locals don't always go there.
Yeah.
I know that in many instances, when you matriculated in high school, you want to leave the area.
Yeah.
You want to leave your parents' home
Right.
and go someplace else.
Right.
But I look at the alumni base and the outstanding and phenomenal graduates that we have who are doing amazing things in all the fields.
Yeah.
And they did not come to West Liberty because they could not go anyplace else. Many of them chose to come to West Liberty because of the education that is offered. And that's still the case now. We have some amazing students on our campus who come from everywhere.
Yes.
We've got West Virginia students, but we've got students from all over that come to our campus, and they are doing an amazing job. They're getting a dynamic education, and they're going out into the world and making a difference.
Yeah, and they're getting taught in a relatively small classroom with not with graduate assistants, but with actual real professors.
Real professors,
Generally having at least a master's degree, if not a terminal degree.
You're right. You're
Yeah,
absolutely right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So tons of things. One last question. This is a little bit, I meant to ask this a little bit earlier because I want to end on a good note, but there has been some encroachment from some of the other state colleges into this area. Is there anything that, any way, do you have any response to that? So let me put it that way.
Well, it seems as though I'm often in wherever there's conflict or controversy. My name seems to be at the middle of it. Some months ago, there was the talk of one of our state institutions, Bluefield College, moving into the area.
Yeah.
And at that time, the president of Wheeling University and of Northern Community College, the three of us got together and felt like whatever needs of this area could be met by our three institutions.
Yeah.
And I still feel strongly about that.
Yeah.
West Virginia, the public institution certainly has a process and a policy for other state institutions coming into the area.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things where we look at what's mutually beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
But here you've got two state institutions and a private institution that, again, working collaboratively and collectively, I think that the three of us, I've said it then and I continue to say that now, that we can meet the needs of this area.
Yeah, yeah.
And do it successfully.
Yes, good. All right, so there's really no need then.
I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so.
What's West Liberty's slogan these days? What are they going by?
There are so many different slogans. We talk about being affordable. We talk about being caring. I like to say that this is the West Liberty way, that's about doing things differently, certainly changing, but being there to meet the needs of everyone. That it's like, I know one glove doesn't fit all. However, I would say that West Liberty is that institution that can, should, and will fit all.
Okay.
And so we're welcoming and certainly doesn't matter how old you are, how young, doesn't matter where you're from or what your interest is. I'm convinced that West Liberty University can offer you a solid education.
All right.
That's
Very
what I
good.
think.
So there you have it, West Liberty. Check it out. It may be the glove that fits all. So there you go. Thank you so much, Ron Scott, for bringing Dr. Evans.
Oh,
to
not a
us.
problem. Not a problem at all.
And we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to talk to our audience. I really appreciate that.
Thank you
And
for the
I
opportunity.
Hope you'll come back again sometime.
Look forward to it.
All right. Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
We'll be right back after these words.
The Metro News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Jeff Jenkins. U.S. Senator Joe Manchin says one of the main keys to the $1 trillion-plus infrastructure bill that is awaiting the signature of President Joe Biden is that the funding is not front-loaded. He says it will continue over several years, meaning several years of projects and several years of employment.
These are top-notch jobs. And this program goes on for 8 to 10 years. It's not like a gimmick where we fund it, we got raised funds for 10 years, but we only did the program for 2 years. That's notorious on both sides. Democrats and Republicans have done that for years. This one is truly all the way through.
West Virginia set to receive $6 billion from the infrastructure bill. State Interagency Task Force Director Jim Hoyer says he trusts the numbers. Hoyer says the task force relies on certain metrics to help it plan for any future surges in COVID-19 cases. He says those indicators are currently showing an uptick.
We know it is exceptionally accurate and effective, and it tells us that we have hit a plateau again, and particularly going into winter months and cold weather as more people go inside, we must get people vaccinated.
Now, the Cabell County Board of Education has a special meeting set for this afternoon. The board may end up taking another step when it comes to mask wearing in schools. The county's color on the COVID-19 alert map allowed for no masks last week, but masks are back on this week after an uptick in cases. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. The State Public Employees Insurance Agency will host the first of several public hearings this evening on next budget year's health insurance plan for state workers. The first meeting this evening at the State Culture Center in Charleston, PEIA, will be in Beckley tomorrow evening. Payment for health insurance is front and center in the ongoing service worker strike at Cabell Huntington Hospital. The two sides resumed contract negotiations earlier today. A federal mediator brought them back to the table. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Jeff Jenkins.
AutomotiveMap.com presents the Sports Flash, powered by The Score on The Watchdog. I'm John Thayer. The NCAA Constitution Committee yesterday shared its draft constitution with NCAA member schools and conferences. The draft provides significant authority to divisions, giving each the ability to reorganize and restructure itself. The new draft includes new concepts and prohibits pay-for-play, but embraces name, image, and likeness benefits, and allows each division to have oversight over its own budget, expenditures, and distribution to its members. A special convention is set for November 15th to discuss feedback on the draft constitution. Final recommendations will be provided to the Board of Governors December 15th and voted on in January. Download the Score app today. Lightning fast sports alerts so you never miss a thing. I'm John Thayer with the Sports Flash, powered by The Score on The Watchdog.
When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away.